Hello, hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Full build guide for Icebringer is here, boys. We're going to talk about everything in this video. Everything is going to be like put together. I'm going to talk about first of all, we're gonna have like a short showcase. If someone wants to see the pinnacle boss fights, this footage is going to be the previous video. I'm going to talk about leveling, skill gems, items, passive tree, everything is going to be put together in this one video. Here we go. There's no time to waste, boys. We have plenty of stuff to do. Plenty of. First of all, it's going to be a pretty long video. Secondly, I'm still working on other projects, which I'm surprised. I even surprised myself because I thought I'm going to probably stop going with new projects, but I'm still trying to learn new stuff. So I decided to do more. So I'm just going to, guys, give you a quick showcase to the people that did not see how the character functions. Basically, this is a Herald of Ice with Pulsar Curl character, at the same time combining very decent amount of tankiness and very good single target. The way we proliferate the explosions is we use the Warbringer node that makes you break armor. 10% of your damage is going to break armor of enemies. And we're combining armor, explosion, and devastate to basically chain explode enemies with Herald of Ice. So therefore, you're going to see a very good clear speed on this build. Of course, the clear speed is going to increase the more you're going to increase the attack speed, because you will be just able to leap slam more often, and it doesn't really matter if you use Leap Slam or if you decide to do something else with this build. But I decided that Leap Slam is going to be by far the best because at the same time, simultaneously, this is our mobility skill. So there is kind of no point to use anything else, right? I mean, this is going to be the fastest way to explode monsters because you're moving at the same time. So I don't see a reason why would you want to use something else. That being said, the world is your oyster, boys. You can absolutely do whatever you want. You can even play this with Rolling Slam if you want. I don't. Once again, I don't see a point necessarily. Why would you want to do that? But it's up to you. Whatever you enjoy doing the most. Now, there was a small accusation in the few videos ago, something like that, when someone said that I didn't click or go through the mirror of Delirium. Because this is a Herald of Ice build, so it can do it very nicely, and can basically do Delirium. Now, when it comes to Simulacrum, this is true. I haven't even tried Simulacrum on this build because it's probably going to be pain in the butt. Because it's you're not going to have good time doing Simulacrum, let's be honest, on a Herald of Ice character. That being said, if you want to farm Delirium during maps with this character, you absolutely can, and it's going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. You absolutely can. The accusation was completely, false. I've done many Deliriums on this character, and it's almost there's almost no difference doing Delirium compared to doing no Delirium on this character. The Delirium monsters will die as soon as you get to white monsters. Everything will just explode altogether, right? So the difference between doing Delirium and not doing Delirium, these Delirious monsters that don't have corpses and they don't explode, it almost doesn't matter. So you might ask, why am I not doing Delirium then on this character? The reason is simple. We're already sitting at 14 FPS right now. I'm hoping I'm not going to be dropping frames on the video, so I can actually showcase the map properly. And while doing Delirium on my GTX 1660 Super, I dropped to below 10 FPS. Therefore, I decided to just completely skip Delirium and not do it not do it at all on this character. I hope you guys I hope this is understandable, and I don't want to make it sound like an excuse, but that's just literally what it is, right? That is literally what it is. Other than that, doing Delirium you absolutely can, and you're not going to feel much different even compared to not doing it, because the delirious monsters will die as you start killing regular monster packs. So everything is going to explode. You're not really going to see any difference. It's almost there's almost no change. Now, when it comes to single target damage, talked about the clear speed a little bit. When it comes to single target damage, we're using the Bullock 1 Exalt Mace that gives us this little modifier. If you expand, it's not called expand. It says if you consume endurance charge, your next attack is going to be a guaranteed crit. That basically turns a shield charge into a guaranteed crit, pretty much into Sunder. But shield charge scales even harder than Sunder when it comes to numbers. So that guarantees a critical hit on shield charge and gives us absolutely gigantic amount of single target damage against bosses, as long as we have endurance charge to consume. And we do have a way to create endurance charges. It's with Armor Breaker. We have 40% chance. That being said, every boss fight pretty much ends as soon as you generate one endurance charge, because you're gonna just one-shot everything, right? So the single target damage on this character is very strong, and I'm generally speaking very happy with how it turned out, because a character that has this much clear and very good tankiness, usually they don't like do that much devastating single target damage, but this character does. We're gonna have a boss in a second, so let's just get over here. I'm gonna have a boss in a second. Let's get rid of these guys. That's kind of unfortunate, because I was using Leap Slam with close combat, so the damage that we had, what you saw, was actually lower, because you're supposed to, generally speaking, keep the momentum on Leap Slam to get permanent 40% damage multiplier, and then swap to shield charge on bosses. It's something you can do, right? So we're just gonna swap to weapon set number 2. I messed up my rotation completely. So what you're supposed to do is hit the boss with Solar Orb, then Curse. I think I'm just gonna kill the ads. There we go. You're supposed to Solar Orb the enemy, then Curse, then Armor Break to generate Frenzy Charge. If you don't, that's fine. And then you're just gonna charge at the boss. And every boss in the game, if you do it like this, every boss in the game is going to die in one hit. Period. There's some exceptions, and of course, bosses will sometimes live through the first shield charge. Sometimes, if you don't generate endurance charge, but if you do generate endurance charge, the damage is absolutely devastating, right? The damage is like absolutely insane. If you saw my previous video when I was fighting pinnacle bosses, for example, you could see there that I was doing about 30-something million damage with a single shield charge to bosses. And if you really wanted to, you could push even more than that, because you could keep on scaling critical damage. My amulet is nothing too crazy, nothing too special. For example, an amulet you could have +3 to melee skills, and on top of that, you could have critical damage multiplier, right? So there's just like how much damage you could get is like, there's almost, I don't want to say there's no limit, but if you wanted to scale a little bit more Ignite, because we still do fire damage with Infernal Cry, then with scaling a little bit more Ignite, Magnitude, and Critical Strike damage, then you could probably hit with Shield Charge for about 50 million damage. Which is like insane, right? So, not going to continue. I think we did good enough. I'm just gonna get this. Okay, it's fine. This is pretty much how it looks like, apart from the very clunky boss. But you know, this is one of my very first builds where actually I need to press more than one button to one-shot the boss. So you need to drop Solar Orb, you need to drop Flammability, then you need to Armor Break, then Infernal Cry, and boom, the boss is dead, right? So that's basically how it works. All right, so I think we're just going to jump right ahead and talk about leveling in the campaign briefly. And there is going to be no surprise here. I have some news. This is going to be once again another build that, in my opinion, the best way to level it is just to go for the build guide I made at the start of the league, and literally how to build your own Will Smith, and literally just do Leap Slam into Bone Shatter throughout the entire campaign, maybe even like until level 80 or something like that. Because when you leave the campaign, when you finish the campaign at level like 62, 63, 64, something like this, leveling to level 80 is extremely fast. super fast with Leap Slam Bone Shatter, because the Bone Shatter just with Impact Shockwave just does so much damage that you can literally just clear tier 15, tier 13, tier 11 maps at very low level, and at these tiers of maps your level just goes out like this, right? Like I started leveling this character after the campaign, and I was doing Bone Shatter, and literally I would jump into like a tier 10, tier 11 map right off the bat without even a great gear, and I would get 4 levels per map. So it's like from finishing the campaign to level 80, it takes like an hour if you're doing things properly. So it's just insane how fast it goes. So what I would recommend basically is doing a classic. At the start of the game, you're doing Rolling Slam and exploding enemies with Bone Shatter, and as soon as you get to Leap Slam, you start doing Leap Slam with Overpower, with Brink supports, and Bone Shatter with AoE, with Impact Shockwave, and with more AoE with Reach. But don't do Reach before you get Resolute Technique though, because you'll be missing enemies. That being said, this is what you do, and I think you can level until even tier 15 maps with this setup, and it's all good. It's super smooth. It's the best leveling setup for warriors in the game. Nothing compares really. Nothing compares. Nothing compares to this, right? Nothing compares. I have some news though. I'm working on my next project, and maybe there is going to be another way to level up. I still don't think it's going to be as good, but I'm going to talk about it in the future when we're going to get to that project. Alright, so let's jump into skill gems. So, there's like a lot of empty things here, let's just ignore that. So, Shield Charge. Shield Charge, a skill that scales damage based on off of how much armor your shield has. This is why on weapon set number 2, instead of Swollen, we have as much armor as possible. And we have Shield Charge, of course, with Exploit. Let's just put it over here. The most important gem, Execute, 50% more damage with hits against enemies that are on low life. This works permanently with the Deepest Tower. You get the damage bonus always, because enemies in your presence are going to count as being on low life, which means that this is effectively a 50% more damage multiplier, right? Of course, this presence area seems very small here, but you don't need to worry about that. As soon as you are... some might think that if you're going to shield charge, let's just say that this is a boss, if you're going to shield charge from too far away, it's not going to count as being in your presence because you started shield charging outside of the box. But this counts basically wherever the hit happens when you're next to the boss. So with shield charge, it's going to be always, right? Because you start doing damage on the collision. So you're going to be always next to the boss, so the damage bonus is always going to apply. Then we have Exploit Weakness. This is important because we want to generate endurance charges, and we do physical damage on this build. We do physical and fire, as always, because of Infernal Cry. But not only breaking the armor is going to give you endurance charges, potentially, it's also going to fully break armor with just a single hit, because it's very easy to break armor on bosses. Therefore, Exploit Weakness is absolutely fantastic, because this is basically going to be a 40% damage multiplier gem. Very strong, in my opinion. There's no reason to not to use it. Of course, the only thing that is going to suck a little bit is that you just need to armor break before using shield charge. But, you know, playing along with the vision for once, I mean, there's no need to complain about that. Then super critical, 100% increased critical damage bonus. There is another support gem that you can get for crit, and this support is called critical. This support is called it was a green one. It wasn't a green one. There is a support gem that gives you 30% more critical damage bonus. But you will be dead. Oh, it's this one. You are dazed for 5 seconds. That doesn't really matter, right? We have the stun charms, so like this is whatever. But 30% more critical damage bonus. The reason why I'm not using this one is basically at my amount of critical damage bonus, which right now is 423. This is basically giving me the same amount. I think the other one gives me like 3% more critical damage bonus. So I decided to just go for this one and not be dazed. But if you want to scale this build further and further and further, and invest more, even more into critical damage bonus. For example, you want to have Amulet with critical damage bonus, and on top of that, you want to anoint 60% crit damage bonus, because there is a notable like that on the passive tree. Then you can totally swap them around and get the 30% more critical damage bonus. At this point, it's going to give you even more damage. But for now, I'm just using super critical, because it's just like literally 100% increased critical damage bonus, and the less critical hit chance does not matter. It's pretty good, right? If you're, on the other hand, something to keep in mind, if your critical damage bonus is even lower, then against bosses, you can just use close combat. That is totally fine. You can totally do that. It's totally reasonable to just get close combat if your crit is not high enough. You know, yeah, basically, yeah. Then Conk Effect, 30% more area damage. Some people were, there was this bug, I talked about it in the previous video, where sometimes shield charge used to like not really do damage, or like do much less, and some people were blaming Conk Effect because of that, because of this less area of effect node. I tested it with Conk Effect, I tested it without Conk Effect. It had no difference whatsoever. Just there was no difference whatsoever. So the bug that happened, that shield charge sometimes doing way less damage than it should, than intended, it has nothing to do with the area. I don't think so. So Conk Effect for 30% more area damage, very simple. And then of course Momentum for 40% more damage, as long as you're hitting the boss from, as long as you're going to move 2 meters before hitting the boss or enemy, right? So this is one of the best supports for this build. There's nothing to say. The support is so good that we actually, during mapping, I use Momentum on Leap Slam to get additional damage, to make it even easier to start proccing the explosions, and maybe sometimes kill the leftover rare monsters that didn't die to explosions. And then against bosses, I'm just going to swap to this, and that's what I do, right? Alright, next up, Leap Slam. Cold Infusion is the most important thing. First of all, this does not have to be, as I mentioned during the showcase, it does not have to be Leap Slam. You could use any skill you wanted, really. My big recommendation is Leap Slam, though, because you're moving and killing monsters at the same time. And also, this is great for safety measures, because you're going to Leap Slam, the monster's going to start walking towards you, sprinting towards you from the other screen, and once you land, everything around you is turned into dust, into icy dust, right? So I think Leap Slam, the best skill for this build when it comes to clearing, because once again, you're clearing maps and moving at the same time. Can't say enough good things about it. Then, Leap Slam is just overpowered. I'm just gonna avoid using that word, but Leap Slam got buffed really hard this patch. There is no reason not to use it. We have Cold Infusion. This is mandatory. This 25% extra damage as cold damage is going to allow you to basically chill enemies always, and then chilled enemies will be shattered as the frozen because of Pulsar Cone, and then all the combination of what I mentioned before during the showcase. All these things start working, start chaining together, and therefore you have the big chain explosions from Herald of Ice. Right, so you need to have a source of cold damage. Then, honestly, I didn't have anything like too crazy on the Leap Slam. I wasn't thinking about it that much. There is possibility that you could find something better than Heavy Swing, not gonna lie. Heavy Swing is okay, but it slows you down a little bit, so, you could possibly do something else. But I've been using Rage on Hit, which is okay, because Rage, at the same time, this build does not have easy Rage generation. So once when you're like Leap Slamming and hitting monsters over and over and over again, you're gonna accumulate Rage, and Rage also increases the damage on the Herald of Ice because it's an attack skill. So that's really nice, right? So I think Rage is a great support. Martial Tempo is a great support. Obviously, we're moving faster. You could exchange Heavy Swing for, like, I don't know, for Heft even, because the damage difference is not going to be a big deal, and the less attack speed penalty is. You could do this if you want to, like, hit a little bit faster, but a little bit like slightly less hard. But you could also use Heavy Swing if you want to, if you don't mind the less attack speed penalty. It's up to you, really. It's up to you. I'm trying to think about like something better for now, but you could probably find something, but heavy swing is okay. But you could use, like, for example, heft to reduce this, make this less attack speed detrimental effect disappear, right? So this is up to you. Martial tempo for more speed, and then once again, as I mentioned, we want to swap these because 40% more damage. The more damage always the better, right? But also this will allow you to kill the leftover rare monsters more easily. So in my opinion, a great way to. It's not a big deal, right? All you gotta do against bosses is literally just do this, boom, and press X to swap weapons, and boom, you're done, right? So yeah. Not a lot of clunkiness there. Then Infernal Cry, Infernal Cry, as always, one of the strongest skills, if not the strongest buff in the game. It gives you 100%, 150% of damage as extra fire damage when you're next to the unique enemy. That includes bosses, pinnacle bosses, rogue exiles, perhaps something else that I missed. It's just absolutely devastating buff, and it's especially devastating on builds that wants to hit once but really hard. And guess what the shield charge does, right? We have Premeditation for even more damage multiplier, with Enraged Warcry for even more damage multiplier, then with Raging Cry to generate Rage for more damage multiplier, and then with Inhibitor, this is something that someone actually on my Discord messed up and claimed that the build did not function properly. It's because they missed it. This support is really important because once you do your rotation, right? You do this, you do the curse, you armor break, then you war cry, and then you shield charge, right? This is your basically damage rotation to one-shot bosses. They missed one thing. They didn't read this one thing. Consumes all endurance charges to empower additional attacks. We want to avoid that. We do not want this skill to consume endurance charge, because endurance charge we want to Nebulok to consume endurance charge to have a guaranteed crit on shield charge. Therefore, I'm using this support inhibitor here to basically make it so that the Infernal Cry cannot consume endurance charges once you generate them with Armor Breaker. And yeah, this is mandatory. This is what you have to do to make the setup work properly. So something to keep in mind, boys. This is quite important. Then Armor Breaker, 50% more armor is no brainer, right? We want to break even more armor. So with this support, level 30 from the weapon. The level is going to be even lower when you swap to this, but the armor break and the amount of armor break you're gonna break is still going to be very, very high. So most bosses, vast majority of bosses in the game, including even pinnacle bosses, one hit from armor breaker and their armor is going to be fully broken. That being said, there are some bosses that needs two, for example, King of the Mist. So keep that in mind, because we lose like absolutely insane amount of damage if the armor of the enemy is not fully broken before using shield charge. Something to keep in mind. And then 40% chance to gain endurance charge when supported skills fully break armor with break endurance. What am I supposed to say about that? 40% chance would be much better if this was a 100% chance. This build against bosses would actually feel incredibly smooth. But this is one of the weaknesses. One weakness really that this build has is that this 40% is not going to be consistent. Once you get to really high level of gear, I think that this is for the most part irrelevant, because bosses, from my experience, die from one hit. Even if I do my combo properly, do Solar Orb, do the Curse, Armor Break, War Cry, and boom, Shield Charge, my bosses die in one hit still, even if I don't get the 5 times the damage from endurance charge, right? But if you generate endurance charge, this is mostly for pinnacle bosses, to one-shot pinnacle bosses, right? This is what is important for, and this is why I use this entire setup to just one-shot pinnacle bosses. So yeah, it's 40% chance. The good news is that Leap Slam by default, Leap Slam has this line: consumes fully broken armor on enemies to cause 500% more stun buildup. That basically means that if you fully break the armor of the, I don't know, Zasht, Arbiter of Ash, or whatever pinnacle boss you're fighting, fully break armor, you notice that there is no endurance charge, so you just leap slam. Armor breaker, leap slam. Armor breaker, leap slam. And then you wait until you get this armor, this 40% chance procs, and then you do your damage rotation, and then you one-shot the boss. It's basically it's not that clunky. It's just sometimes with 40% chance you're just gonna get unlucky, right? This is the only frustrating part. Sometimes you're gonna get unlucky, and you're going to not going to get that 40% chance. You're not gonna get that endurance charge 3, even sometimes 4 times in a row. But other than that, it's not really that bad because you can consume the fully broken armor very easily and just try again. So another good thing about this is that, for example, enemies like Arbiter of Ash will not use their annoying one-shot abilities and other annoying stuff when they're full HP pretty much. So since these abilities don't really do any damage, you can just keep on trying, and Arbiter of Ash is going to be doing like whatever. You know, he's not going to be really dangerous. And then all of a sudden, you're going to break their armor, you're going to get endurance charge, and boom, they're dead. Phase 2, right? So that's how it works. Then for just, for quality of life, I added break posture to additionally apply daze on fully breaking the armor and maim to make bosses slower. Nothing special, but I haven't really found anything better to use here. So instead of break posture, because we don't really stun enemies anyway. I mean, we do the short stun because we hit so hard, like this. They just get interrupted. But we don't do like a fully heavy stun really with this build. So what you could do instead, you could drop this out if you really wanted to, and you could add physical mastery to just literally add +1 to skill level of armor breaker to make it break a little bit more armor. But that is going to give you just the tiniest little bit. So it's whatever. Then Solar Orb, Font of Rage, Font of Blood, Strip Away, Fire Exposure. Strip Away Fire Exposure. If you don't know how Solar Orb works, if you drop it on top of the boss, it will always ignite. Therefore, this means that if you're gonna drop it on top of the boss, they will get Fire Exposure for 8 seconds, and this Fire Exposure is going to have increased effect by 20% on top of that. So there's gonna be 20%, 24% fire penetration basically. And then Font of Blood for life regeneration, extra bonus. And then Font of Rage, absolutely mandatory to generate rage before the fight. But that's not... It is important, but there's a way to... There's something you can do on Warbringer, so I'm going to talk about that later. Then Flammability with Persistence for more skill effect duration. I think it's useful. Highland Curse for increased magnitude, and Arcane Tempo to cast it a little bit faster. There is not too much to talk about here. With Solar Orb and Flammability, you're basically going to reduce the boss's fire resistance by about 60%. So at this point, you need, basically against pinnacle bosses, you need like 15% fire penetration on the tree or from a jewel or whatever to basically penetrate them to 0. So that's really cool. Then Scavenge Plating. Scavenge Plating is surprisingly pretty useful in this build because we break armor all the freaking time, including bosses. Therefore, you're going to have basically permanently 70% more armor. Pretty much permanently 70% more armor. And that is not an inconsequential amount of armor because, as you can see, we have 7,000 armor kinda by doing nothing, by just getting some armor in our gear. I have no investment into armor on the tree pretty much whatsoever, except for the very, very first points on the passive tree. So with that additional 70%, that is substantial, very substantial amount of physical damage reduction. And physical damage reduction is very useful into pinnacle bosses, generally speaking. Because this patch, they lost the physical overwhelm. They lost many of the conversions that they had. They were converting physical damage to different elements. They lost that. So having very high armor is actually very useful into physical bosses, into pinnacle bosses now. So it's going to reduce the damage that you will be taking quite significantly. So that's additional layer of defense that we have on this build. Because you're just going to mitigate the hits that will go through your block. So that's really cool, right? So Scavenge Plating, I think the best buff. Then Berserk with Precision. Berserk obviously mandatory because it will give you much more damage from Rage. So this is the best support for warriors, period. I don't think I had a single warrior build that I didn't use Berserk on. I would need to think about it because I made like 7 warrior builds already, but I don't think that a single one was missing Berserk, I'll be honest. And Herald of Ice, last but definitely not least. Herald of Ice, the good thing about Herald of Ice is that we obviously don't use Resolute Technique, otherwise we wouldn't be able to crit. Therefore, you would think that this is going to be a problem because we want to use Magnified Effect and Reach for maximum accuracy. Excuse me, for maximum area of effect. And this Reach support has 80% less accuracy rating against enemies within 2 meters. That doesn't matter because Herald of Ice always hits. It cannot be evaded. So accuracy on this skill does not matter. So we can invest fully into area and we don't need to worry about accuracy whatsoever. And then we have Armor Explosion and Devastate, as I explained before. Devastate is actually not mandatory, but I think it helps a lot because sometimes you're going to see maps that have monsters are armored. Sometimes monsters will have more armor than the other monsters, and this pretty much guarantees that you're going to chain explosions. I tested many different setups. To me, this feels the best. These 2 skills, Armor Explosion and Devastate, these 2 skills, Magnified Effect and Reach, and then literally just Primal Armament for more weapon elemental damage, because Herald of Ice converts 100% of physical damage on your weapon, 100% of your physical damage to elemental damage, to cold. So this is effectively going to be 25% more damage for Herald of Ice, right? And it hits hard enough so that I decided to just go for this, and it works perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to talk briefly, very briefly, about skill levels, because there are some skills that you're not supposed to level up, really. Solar Orb, you can get at the very low level of 3, I believe. Maybe the lowest one is 5, I don't remember. It's 3 or 5. That being said, you don't really need to level it up, because there is no point. This way, you're going to keep the requirements low. Flammability, you want to get the lowest level possible that where you can satisfy the requirements, right? I think I could get level 11, I could get level 1 level more, but I have level 10 and I just didn't change it. I have like 97 dexterity, 93 intelligence. So basically, if you have a little bit less than that, you want to use level, lower level flammability. The lowest level, I believe, is level 7, which would require 50 something intelligence, 52 perhaps. And that should be absolutely very trivial for everyone to acquire. Scavenge Blading as high as possible, Berserk as high as possible, and Herald of Ice, the same story, the highest level you can get. I have 93 dexterity, 92 intelligence, I have level 17 Herald of Ice. Don't be worried, level 15, you're going to have level 14 even with lower requirements. If you're going to have something like that, that should still feel absolutely fine as long as you have high enough physical damage on your weapon. Because the physical damage on the weapon is actually going to matter, so something to keep in mind. And that's it when it comes to skill gems. We're going to jump into passive tree. So first of all, we're going to talk about ascendancy. So what never changes, what is mandatory in my opinion, is Renly's Training and Turtle Charm. This of course allows us to block all hits in a game, not only the projectiles and like the small melee hits. You will be able to block everything, including AoEs, including Chaos Plants, including volatile like on-death explosions, including Pinnacle Boss hits, everything. You can block everything. Of course, the penalty is pretty annoying, 25% less block chance. That being said, this still got buffed. Last season it was 35%, which was much more hefty of a penalty. 25% is very, very manageable. So, Turtle Charm, I think. If you're playing Warbringer, if you don't use Turtle Charm, then, like, I'm not sure what you're doing. But, it's just, these notes are too good not to take them, I think. In my opinion, they're just too good. Then, of course, Anvil's Weight, that will allow the chain explosion thing. And then you can, at this point, you can get, for example, Jade Heritage for some more physical damage reduction. I don't use Jade Heritage to get the guard skill, like 2,000 or like 2,500 of my life as a shield. I don't really do that against in maps like I don't really die with Swallow. I have 88% block chance, so it's not really mandatory. You could use that if you wanted to. For example, if you fought like a boss that hits really hard, like a monkey, you can use that to survive the hit. It's totally up to you. What you could do also is, I guess, invest into imploding impacts, but now that I think about it, there's like not really a reason to use this. You're going to break more armor, so it's going to be easier to chain explosions, but against single target, that is not really going to give you that much damage. So, but what you could do against pinnacle bosses. So let's just say you have a session where you want to kill pinnacle bosses, like, you know, just like that, like kill 20 pinnacle bosses in a row when you're just farming pinnacle bosses, right? You can respec out of these two notables, all of them, and invest into Great Wolf's Howl. This way, you will be able to spam Infernal Cry, and you will never have to worry about rage generation and stuff like that. Because before, you're going to do your typical rotation, so it's going to be Solar Orb into Flammability into Armor Breaker, and then you spam Infernal Cry to get maximum rage, and then you hit with Shield Charge. This could give you some single target damage in some cases, and sometimes it is useful. But yeah, you don't have to do that. This is something you can do if you want. Just mentioning here, right? Now, when it comes to passive skill tree, first up, I'm going to talk about the passives that go on both trees, and then I'm going to briefly talk about passive tree number 1, weapon set number 1, and weapon set number 2. So then we just start over here. You could on pay. No, this is still more efficient. Never mind. So we're going to start over here. We're going to get Relentless, some extra regeneration, strength, always useful. I decided to go for these armor nodes because my chest piece has a decent amount of armor, and this is something I do recommend because, you know, what else are you going to do on prefixes on your armor? There's not that much you can get, possibly, right? You're going to have like a hybrid armor life, and you're going to get like 30 increased life or something like that, but that's not a big deal. So my recommendation is getting some armor on your chest piece and using sturdy metal to get very solid amount of armor. Very good use from that notable, right? We're getting brutal, and then we're going to go over here on for the block nodes. Something that you're going to notice, and I need to mention, is that block nodes need to go on both passive trees. You're not going to have like only block nodes on weapon set number 1, they're on both weapon sets. So something to keep in mind. So Defender's Resolve for more block chance. They were going to go going this way, bada bing. We're getting block and Unstoppable Barrier. This is really cool also for one reason. If you want to run temporal chains maps and temporal chains piss you off, you can get that and get potentially some other nodes, like for example these ones. And temp chains is not going to be a problem anymore because you're going to get like 8%, 8%, 24%, it's going to be 40%, 15%. So with all of that, you're going to have 55% reduced slowing potency or debuffs. That is a lot. That is 55%. So temp chains all of a sudden is going to turn into a temp chains from season 1, from the previous season when it was like 7%. So you're going to reduce temp chains effect so hard, and other slowing effects which are annoying in this game, that they're not going to be a problem anymore. So something you can do. We're going this way. Beef. I don't think I had a single warrior character that didn't take beef, not gonna lie. Going this way, stun threshold, strength, and life. I love this cluster, and I take it pretty much every time I can. Then we're going this way, very nice damage nodes, and this especially good for, of course, the weapon swap when we actually use high defense shield, high armor shield. You can, of course, if you want to get 3% attack speed instead of 10% increased attack damage, totally fine to do. Totally fine to do. Going this way then, turning left, taking blood magic is mandatory in my opinion. Makes it even better that this build, actually from all warrior builds that I made, this build doesn't have very high life costs on skills. That being said, if you're going to have mana, and if you're going to have like 400 or 500 mana, these costs will still be annoying. But if you take blood magic on the other hand, these costs get completely irrelevant. You're never going to notice, because like, look, shield charge, your main attack is going to cost like 340. Then some of these, they're not going to cost a lot, right? Some from the regeneration you're going to have from the skill tree and the chest from the Ornate Plate. You're not really going to have any issues whatsoever when it comes to having life costs, right? Your HP is not going to like go down to half when you're using a totem or something like this, right? It's not going to be like that. So I think a blood magic is super good quality of life. You never have to worry about mana. Super nice. Then we're going this way, and this is a lot of points, but it's mandatory because we need to get these points. This is absolutely gargantuan amount of block chance, and on top of that, the cherry additional damage per block chance, very strong. That is a lot of damage. Even on the deepest tower build, like having 75% damage per notable like this is a lot of damage. So after that, we're going this way. You're going to notice that this is actually from 2 weapon sets. This is for both weapon sets. Attack speed reducing notables, I think they're really good because they really amplify the damage on the Herald of Ice. And trust me, I tested different variations of this build. This felt the best to me. Like actually, getting that additional damage and getting this attack speed over here to nullify the lower attack speed from these nodes. This really felt good. So this is what I'm doing. Going this way, getting more strength because strength obviously is needed. Additional damage per strength. We have 500 strength on this build, so not too much, but of course you could get way more than that if you wanted. Giant's Blood. This is actually not even mandatory in this build. This is actually not even mandatory because you could have a weapon with like a single and one-handed weapon with like a very, very high physical damage. Because you don't really care about elemental damage with attacks on this build. You don't really care about that stat. This, by the way, is not even like a great weapon for this build, but I kept using that from the previous characters, right? And even melee to plus level of all melee skills is not that important. It is useful still. You're gonna keep on doing more damage with Leap Slam and with Shield Charge on your weapon set number 1 to finish off rare monsters, but it's not like super crazy. So the most important stat you really need is increased physical damage. So if you're going to have a one-handed mace with very high physical damage stat and no other stats, then you could just like drop this completely. And this is going to work. And the weapon is going to be faster at the same time. So like on paper, there's like a lot of benefits. You're not going to be doing as much damage, but with Herald, because you're not going to beat like two-hander. Like two-handers just hit way harder. But you can experiment with this and try it out if you decide that you want to get a faster weapon and Leap Slam way faster. And you can totally give it a try. Then we're just going this way, bada beam, bada boom. This is going to be weapon set number 1, weapon set number 2. This is really mandatory, the attributes, because we will need to get decent amount of dexterity and intelligence for this build. So attributes here and polymathy. Additionally, if you're going to struggle even more with attributes and something, or maybe a requirements for your weapon with Giant's Blood, then you can invest into like 1 or 2 of these, right? Totally a decent idea. Then we're going this way through the jewel socket, boom, and then on both weapon sets, once again, more block with another 1% damage per 1% chance to block, notable. At this point, this is 2% increased damage per 1% chance to block, which is actually a very hefty amount of extra damage. And that's pretty much for the main tree. The weapon set number 1 is going to be very simple. It's basically area, more area, with this one little note here because it's really good for damage, area, and attack speed over here. That is literally what you're supposed to be getting on weapon set number 1. Area everywhere and attack speed. This attack speed cluster feels really nice, and that's literally it. That's what I'm doing. That's what works for me. If someone has something better to found out like a better way to do this tree, please let me know in the comments. And for the weapon set number 2, we have it's going to be specific because obviously we're scaling crits, so we're going to have critical multiplier here, critical multiplier here. Then we're going to have ailment magnitude. From all my testing, I have noticed that the damage from Infernal Cry, the fire damage, is so massive that investing these 3 points into Ignite Magnitude is still great. We don't really care about attack speed on Shield Charge because we hit once and really hard. So this magnitude is going to be, and duration is going to be really good, and it will actually allow you to one-shot pinnacle bosses. So so this is really nice. And the 15% penetration, as I mentioned before, most pinnacle bosses, Arbiter, I do believe, and Zesht have 75% fire resistance. So with this, you will be able to drop them to 0, together with Solar Orb and Flammability. So that's very nice. And then, of course, the entire bunch of nodes to get the low life nodes over here. The reason why I have these nodes, I forgot to mention also because of from nothing, passive in the radius of unwavering stance can be allocated without being connected to your tree. I have allocated these nodes over here, which is finality. I decided to allocate these on the global trees instead of like just weapon set number 1, because this actually really helps against like rare monsters that you're going to find. Without weapon swapping, you're going to have this extra damage boost. This actually feels useful, so I decided to keep them like this. And then one little note here, escalation for 1 point is super worth it. And then hail heart, 50% life recovery rate for 1 point is just like that's a sacrilege not to take it, because this is 15% increased life recovery rate is different than life regeneration rate. Life recovery rate is going to apply to every way you can recover life. So you have 15% basically increased regen, leech, recovery from flasks, anything. It gets multiplied. Any way you recover life, it will get multiplied by 15%, and that's really, really good. And we're gonna quickly talk about unique gems, unique jewels, excuse me. Unwavering stance, as I mentioned before, from nothing, in my opinion, mandatory. It's really good, but also I used it on many other builds. It's just really, really good for the deepest tower setup. And I don't know how expensive it is right now. I bought it back in the day for like 2 divines, but it is good in my opinion. Then Megalomaniac with anything useful that you can find. I found something. I found a really good one. I found a Throat Seeker for 60% increased critical damage bonus, which is like over here, I believe. Yes. And I found the one with Spiked Shield, which is actually which actually increases my attack damage even further, based on your armor on shield, and also increases the defenses from equipped shield. One thing I'm going to mention real fast. This is a really good Megalomaniac, but the one thing I'm going to mention really fast is that some people say that you can multiply the damage on shield charge by getting increased defenses from equipped shield. That is absolutely not how it works. This basically means that if you have like a 1300 armor on your shield, this node is going to give you 1300 flat armor, and you cannot move it or increase it in any way, shape, or form. This is literally going to be this node is always going to give me 1348 armor, period. And it doesn't give me damage. It cannot get multiplied by other armor modifiers unless you have more armor. I do believe that more armor would work in that case. But more armor is not a multiplier, so obviously it's going to work. But other than that, you just can't do anything with it, right? That's it. You see 100% increased defenses from a quick shield. This is what you're gonna get, right? So it's not going to give you damage or anything like that whatsoever. So talked about this one. Then next up we have, of course, +3 shield charge, Prism of Belief. If this is going to be too expensive, because I bet the price increased a little bit, you can get +2. If +2 is also not going to be available and out of your budget, I would recommend just getting another jewel like this. Critical damage bonus, increased magnitude, ignite to inflict, and something like duration of damaging ailments or something like that. There are other useful notes still. With this, you're not even going to have that much less damage compared to Prism of Belief. This is just like a cherry on top, like if you want to like actually one-shot pinnacle bosses. But you're gonna have much worse gear. Instead of one-shotting, you're gonna be two-shotting pinnacle bosses. Oh no, that's unplayable, I guess. So you know what I mean. And yeah, this jewel, yeah, at the last position, the rare jewel with critical damage bonus and increased magnitude of ignite is something I would recommend very much. And that pretty much covers the passive tree. We're going to talk about items now. So items, as I mentioned before, this weapon, I'm using it because I have it for literally since the start of the league, pretty much. I bought it at the start of the league on my Will Smith character, and I still keep on using the same weapons. This is actually not a great weapon for this build, because for this build you want to get as high physical damage as possible, because all of your physical damage is going to be converted to cold damage from Herald of Ice. Herald of Ice does not benefit from +6 to all melee skills. Elemental damage with attacks is okay, but it's not nothing crazy. It's not going to give you as much damage as very high physical for this build. So basically, the more physical you get on your weapon, the better. That's literally what you want from your weapon. And of course, the faster it is, the better. So this weapon actually sucks. I'm not even kidding. For this build, this weapon actually sucks. But I didn't bother to find a better one. Actually, I didn't even try to like buy a better one. I just kept going with this because it felt good. But yeah. Of course, additional bonus is going to be +2 melee skills. +2 melee skills is always going to be decent because you'll be doing more damage with Leap Slam, so you're going to be finishing leftover rare monsters faster. But it's not mandatory. There's a very good chance that if you're gonna stack physical damage on your two-handed weapon high enough, you will not need like either increased elemental damage or +2 melee skills. This is just not going to be important. Of course, this is only for clearing. We don't care about this weapon at all on weapon set number 2 because on weapon set number 2 we're doing this. So something to keep in mind. Then Swollen. Swollen is absolutely insane for mapping because it gives you Lucky Block. Lucky Block gives you basically an ability to block again, excuse me, if you failed your block for the first time. That means that basically enemy has to go through that 65% chance to block twice before the hit actually lands. So that's just how math works, because 65% into 65% is going to effectively give you 88% block chance. With Turtle Charm, you can block all hits. The build feels very comfy for mapping because you're avoiding 8 out of 9 hits. So even if something is going to go through eventually, you only have 3.5k lives. So it's not like we're gonna get one tapped, right? Almost never gonna happen. So yeah, Swollen absolutely amazing on weapon set number 1. Then chest with as many resistances, life, and armor as possible will be even better. Additional bonus if this is going to be a Ornate Plate. In my opinion, the best implicit from all the items, base items in the game. There's some implicits that give you +1 to max res, which is not bad. There's some implicits that give you +60 or 80 to life, which is not bad. But I think like 2.5 regen per second is just, it's really good. It's not easy. They nerfed regeneration in this game, in this patch. They nerfed how easy it is to get very high amount of regeneration. You can still get a lot of regen, but this implicit is just crazy. By the way, this rolls up to 2.5, so this is actually pretty low. So 2.5 regen per second on an implicit that scales with modifiers like this. I'm sorry, but this is my favorite base in the game. I use it every time I can. Can't say enough good things about it. Take it and use it, boys. Then we have Deepest Tower. Obviously, you know, I explained that everyone probably knows how this functions at this point, but I have the Corruption with increased life regeneration rate, which gives me even more regen from the previous character. And yeah, this gives us like this huge, massive amount of damage from shield charge. Then gloves, I've been using them for a long time. Ignore the amount of armor. Armor on these gloves is actually not that important because on previous characters I've been using this node. On this character I decided that stacking more armor is going to be pointless. So basically what these gloves provide is +2 to melee skills, maximum life, and strength. On top of that, I have to admit that they give me 63% life per enemy killed, which is actually not bad because of this I don't need to worry about life on kill recovery, right? So I don't even need to use the cannibalism. So something you can keep in mind if you don't have any life on kill recovery or any of your gear anywhere, then you can instead get 2% on the jewel instead of one of these stats. And it's going to be, you know, it's so easy to get like life recovery in this game that which is kind of weird from the design standpoint because that basically encourages playstyle where you're just full HP permanently because you recover so much life, or you're dead. Just like that, you're dead. So it's weird that this is how it works, but it is what it is. Then we have a very nice build I bought. I don't remember for how much. I think for like 3 divines, which had strength, life, resistance, and even resistance corruption. So very nice. When it comes to charm slots, I think the most important one is going to be immunity to freeze, then immunity to shock. This one is not really going to be that needed, to be honest, because this charm honestly is kind of garbage because you get stunned and then the charm starts working, but then you're probably not going to get stunned anymore because we have decent amount of stun threshold on this build. That's one thing, but second thing, it's harder to get chain stunned because your stun recovery increases when you get stunned. So after you get stunned, which this charm is not going to mitigate, this needs to get changed. But I still use it, for the lack of better options. But you could use, like, I don't know, immunity to bleed, for example, on this charm, also on this charm slot. It will be okay. And boots, very simple. Increased movement speed, maximum life, strength, resistances. I have chaos resistance here. Once again, this is a piece of equipment I used from the very beginning on my Will Smith character. So I haven't improved my boots since then. And they're good boots, but let's be honest, I've seen better. And then Pulsar Cone, ring that is mandatory. I recommend to enable the Herald of Ice chain explosions. I recommend using increased damage corruption. Increased damage corruption is probably the best. The other good corruption is going to be strength, 15 strength, 15 dexterity, 15 intelligence, whatever is going to give you stats. These are also going to be good corruptions. Then the second ring is extremely simple, and this ring actually is not even good at all. Resistances, life, this fire damage to attacks is completely irrelevant, and strength and like 15 dexterity. Like there's almost 2 dead stats on this ring. The mana and dexterity. Arguably the fire damage to attacks is almost also dead. So this ring is like, I'm not saying this is a horrible ring, but for this build, I haven't been really trying to like min-max the gear for this character like super hard. Many of these items could see some improvements, right? Many of these items are good, like for example this chest or this belt, but like boots, like there are places where you could like have improvements. Then we have Amulet. What I recommend here, a very important thing I need to mention, is that you need to get accuracy, like 300 plus accuracy on Amulet or Ring. Very much needed, because we're not going to have, this is not a Resolute Technique build, so apart from having 30% increased accuracy from precision, we're not going to really have much accuracy. So you need to have some 300 plus, in my opinion, is going to be enough on your ring or amulet, because other than that, there's not going to be like too many places where you can get it. So something to keep in mind, guys. And this amulet, increased maximum life, plus 2 melee skills, plus 3 obviously will be better. Attributes is very important. In terms of importance, you need to get accuracy on the ring or amulet, but other than that, you need to have a plus 2 melee skill. Excuse me. You need to have all attributes, very important stat. You should try to get all melee skills, and percent maximum life is also going to be good in amulet. Other than that, life regeneration is kind of whatever, and evasion is completely dead on this amulet, right? So it's not like that insane, but it's an okay amulet. And for the swap, of course, you use Nebulok. Ignore the fact that it's can't speak anymore. Ignore the fact that it has 2 sockets. It's corrupted. I haven't really found any good corruptions, and the critical damage bonus does not work, by the way, on shield charge that you see over here. So there is really nothing you can do. There is no corruption that is useful. I literally just bought like a corrupted one with 2 sockets and put 20 dexterity, not for the stat requirement or anything like that. Literally to just have a little bit more accuracy. Other than that, there's like not much you can really put in there. There's really not much. So yeah. And then Fortress Tower Shield. Basically, what you need to get here is as much armor as possible. You don't really care about other stats that much. Other useful stats would be strength and physical damage reduction. Would be totally fine to get. Percent physical damage reduction. But the most important stat, of course, by far is armor. Because the more armor you're going to have, the more damage you're going to be doing with your shield charge. The reason why I do not recommend, very much do not recommend, getting resistances on your shield is because on the weapon swap number 1, you have no resistance, apart from chaos resistance if you decide to put such soul course in there. On the weapon swap number 1, because Swollen doesn't give you any resistance. Therefore, it's going to be annoying if you, for example, want to cap your resistance on your shield on weapon swap number 2. Then on weapon set number 1, you're not going to have like enough resistance, right? So I would very much recommend to cap your resistances from the equipment, and then you're not going to need to worry about resistances on your shield. Just prioritize armor, and that's it. Right. And that is pretty much it. It took pretty much as long as always. Thank you very much for watching, guys. This is going to be the last video from this character. I'm pretty happy with it. Apart from, I would honestly give it like 9 out of 10. If it wasn't for the fact that this armor breaker has 40% chance and sometimes shield charge get buggy, then I would give it 9 out of 10. But because these things happen, then I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Very solid build, fun to play. Of course, it's going to destroy your FPS, depending on what your PC is. But you know, this is PoE. It's been like that even in PoE 1 forever, back in the day at least. But yeah, very happy with the build. But this is going to be the last video from it. Next, we're going to be doing something that once again I've never done before. I guess towards the end of the season, towards the end of the league, I'm just doing projects that I've never done before, just to test and feel how they're gonna look like. And you know, this is going to be good for us because I'm going to learn new archetypes, and in the future the new league is going to get released with new content, with new stuff, and I'm immediately going to know what is going to be good and what is going to be a little bit worse. So this is going to be great for us. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I'm going to give you the POB from the current character in the description, and also the mobalytics guide is ready. You can check it out and look for yourself. All the stats, everything needed is there. If something is missing, if you don't know something, please let me know down in the comments, and you can of course join my Twitch streams or the Discord to learn more. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you next time. Bye bye.